Hello, my name is Lannette King. I'm an actor, writer, print model, voiceover, person, specialist, all that great stuff. So and I'm from Kansas City. So I was born in Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County, whoop whoop, and I attended Schlegel High School, all the schools in USD 500. Well, I didn't attend all of them, but that's where I grew up, and I just grew up in a two-parent home, and I had a brother. And I grew up in drill teams, so I traveled a lot dancing and singing, and I was in the marching band, I was in the church choir. I just really moved around a lot, so I knew that being in the arts was, for me, and I was going to be there for a long time. It was the second grade. I was in the second grade, and we used to have to go to get our books from the library. And this was around the time where the teacher would make you grab your book and read it in front of the class. And it was a book, and it had Donald Duck in it, and Mickey Mouse, and some other people. And at that time, I really didn't know what they sound like, but I made it up in my mind. And so the way I read it in my mind was the way that I presented it to the class. And the class fell out laughing. The teacher fell out laughing. She called upstairs, had the principal come down, had the secretary come down, and they were just hollering. And I just didn't understand. And I was sitting there reading the book, because to me, this is how they sound in my head. So one day, that happened, and then maybe a couple of weeks later, somebody else was at the school, and she said, Lanette, go upstairs to the library and get that book that you read to us. And I did it, and she was like, it was funnier the first time. And I was like, well, there's a difference. I was like, I'm still reading it the same in my head, but I guess because I gave it more energy. But that was the first taste that I got. Then after that, you get your Easter speeches and all of that, and singing in the choir. And it was just like a real release for me as a child, because I didn't have a hard childhood, but it could have been a lot easier. So Oh my goodness, the things that I really remember rolling around Wyandotte County was the different atmospheres, because I could go spend time with my cousins down on 3rd Street, which is, the ghetto. Or I could, go somewhere else, and my mother would make me make sure I was sitting up proper. And so it was like I was ingrained with this switch of some sort, to the point where even in high school, there were people who were like, well, what are you doing down here? Down here meaning, why are you in the hood? Okay, so those are the things that I remember. But I remember being able to just be free, and always wanting to travel, because I knew that traveling and singing and the arts was my getaway from my messy life. And that, and penny candy, and penny candy and ices, yes. And then the Milk House burgers, because we used to be able to walk to the store when I was younger, and it was nothing to walk to the store. And you could go there and get you a sandwich, and they would take those buns and stick it in the grease and toast it of your meat. And you can get everything you needed, almost standing right there at the door. And your Boston baked beans, your Chico sticks, and set off walking and talking down the street. And we kind of almost really didn't have a care in the world. But by the time I got to college, they were holding auditions, and they said, no, you don't have to be in the theater to come audition. And so I went to audition, and I read for a role or whatever, and the teacher looked at me, he said, where have you been? And I just took off from there. I went to college at St. Augustine's University. It's in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a small HBCU.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And for anyone who may not know,
a historically black college university. That's what HBCU stands for.
okay.
Well, from college, life hit me. I ended up being a mother before I actually graduated from college, but I still graduated on time and at the top of my class. So that was a great experience. I worked at the church, so I worked in the arts at the church. So I taught step and mime and sign. So it was liturgical dancing, and I worked with the youth divisions in the church, and I also did the videography for the church. So that's where that took me. And then like right before I was about to get divorced, I went back into acting. And I landed a role working with Idris Elba in his music video called Hold On. So I landed that, and that's when I realized it's about who you know. And that was a great experience because I was in a dentist chair one day, and I would always look at my dentist thinking in my mind, I hope his hairs don't fall in my mouth. Because he had so much hair. Like, he was like extra hairy for like no reason. It was like, and I'm like, man. And so he would start talking to me one day. He was like, yeah, Lanette, well, I see you losing weight. I said, yeah, I'm about to leave my husband. He don't know it yet, though. But I'm about to leave him, and I'm going to get back into acting. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. He was like, oh, yeah. So he started name dropping. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. Right? So then here we are 6 months later. I'm at work. Someone says, hey, Lanette, you know, Idris Elba is having an audition. And I was like, oh, I know who Idris Elba is. Kind of didn't, but just a little bit. And so I was like, okay, he does music, but I know who Ninth Wonder is. And so I'm looking up all the stuff and trying to prepare. And I had 2 jobs at this time. So I was like, ooh, this is going to be pushed. So I went ahead and I did my first job, went to the second job. And as I'm driving down the street, I'm changing clothes, throwing clothes in the back, putting clothes on. And then I get there and I was like, are y'all still holding auditions? And they was like, yeah, go into the room. So I go into the room. Lo and behold, a guy behind the table says, Lanette, hey, what's up? And I was like, hey, I had no idea who it was. It didn't hit me until I got to the car that it was my dentist. So that's when I learned it is something about who you know in this business. So that was my first professional gig. So someone once again sent me some information and said, hey, they're casting for Dreamgirls in Kansas City, and it's going to be held here. And I was like, okay. And at that time, I hadn't really been utilizing my voice. And I was like, you know what, I can go. I'm sure there's a part or a role or something where I could just deliver some mail, just so I can get back into it. And I talked myself out of it. And then my daughter said, Mama, you should go. You're going to be Effie. And I was like, nah, you really got, you know, you're really writing a big check here. I was like, you know, I don't really know a lot about professional theater. But I go to the audition. And it was a whole day, and as the time progressed, I realized that, you know, I'm one of the last people still here. And it was amazing to me because, you know, in that audition, there were people who actually sang. There were people who were doing background for people. There are people who have their own records, and they can run up and down a scale. And here I am just in here. And I went in there, and I had a conversation with myself in the mirror before I stepped on the stage. And I said, all right, Lanette, you're going to go in here, you're going to do this, you're just going to step on it. And so when I got in front of Damron, who was, you know, over the black rep, I stood at the front of the table. He was like, all right, what you going to do? And I said, I am telling you, and I'm just going to go in here, I'm going to step on it, I'm going to say. So basically, I told him exactly what I told myself in the mirror. And he was like, well, okay. And so I did it, and I ended up being the only swing in the cast. And I did close for, I had one night only as Effie, and I was Sean Ruffin's understudy, and that was a great experience. So the people who have kind of had my back in Kansas City, Heidi Van. Oh my goodness. I started working through Heidi because I believe she saw me in Dreamgirls, and so I went to something that she had, and so every time I turned around, I was getting, you know, hey Lanette, can you do XYZ? And I was like, you know, I could do community theater, gets me back in the groove. And then from that, I ended up working with Michelle Tyrene Johnson, and then with that, I ended up falling into the hands of just off Broadway theater. So I was at the KC Melting Pot, and then I ended up with Heidi again at the Unicorn Theater, and then I ended up with Heidi again at MTH. And then it's like once you get in, it's like, you're Lanette, and next thing you know, you're in there. Yeah, and Damron as well, because if he gets information, he's like, hey Lanette, I think you should go audition for this. Turns out it's a Tony Award-winning director that you just sent me to go audition for. So now I have a good relationship with him. And so yeah, the Kansas City has some gems. It's like I said, it's about who you know a little bit and making sure that you're always prepared. Well, in the theater community here in Kansas City, I just want to make sure that it's not something that's a fad, something that's, oh, this is in now, so let's do this. Let's make sure we have a black player. We cast some people in some roles and stuff like that. I just want to make sure that it's authentic and that these theaters in Kansas City are really opening their eyes and understanding that, hey, there's a lot of you all out here who's been doing some dirty stuff to your black, actors and your crew as well. So maybe let's clean up the act. And that's what I'm really hoping for during this time. There's a lot of things that can change and change for the better. And that's what I'm really looking for. Seeing is believing. Seeing is believing. Honey, I would tell them to keep going, regardless of what's going on before they join the circus. First of all, make sure that you research as much as you can. See what the life of an actor looks like. See what the life of a videographer looks like. Try to know as much as you can about everything, because then you'll be able to appreciate, I need to sit in this chair and I need to do the same thing over and over again. I need to make sure I'm picking up this cup with my right hand so that I'm helping the editor. I need to make sure that I'm speaking in the same tone so that I'm helping, the voice people and the sound. And I need to make sure that my makeup is right, and because the continuity person got everybody else to worry about. So research some of everything so you know exactly what to do. Know what this life is going to be about. Know about, things that make your skin glow. Because before I have a commercial, I know there's something that I need to do so my skin will pop. Boom. So we can go so that my energy is right. And understand how relationships work. And it's just not about making connections, that it's about building relationships. And every time that you come into touch with someone, every time that you are in somebody's area, you can make a difference. You can make an impact. And that impact is going to help you in the future. It's going to help them in the future. So it's just about learning about life and being comfortable with yourself and knowing that this business needs you. And although it needs you, it's also going to tear you apart. So just understand that that's the process of this business. And 9 times out of 10, there's nothing you can do about it. Because guess what? Either the person that they want for the role, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too dark, you're too light, and ain't nothing you can do about 99% of the things that they're looking for. But what you can do is you can go in trained up, you can go in prepared, you can go in ready, and you just may put something on the table that they can't leave sitting there. And when that happens, that's when they'll write you in. They'll write you in for that commercial. They'll write you in for that TV. They'll write you into their minds, and you will never leave. So that's what I would tell somebody, because they need to understand it's business. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. But get some people in your corner. And when you get those people in your corner, don't be afraid to reevaluate those relationships every now and then. Because sometimes you got to cut people off. They might be friends and they might be family. But that don't mean you have to cut them all the way off. You just don't need them as close to you because they're messing up your energy. So just know, learn yourself in this business and you'll never lose yourself. And so that's where I am in my life. I'm speaking things into existence. I'm doing the work. And I'm just excited. So we'll see what happens.